Hi, my name is Jason Scherer, and this is a series on how to create a medical device and bring it all the way to market. To give you a little background about myself, 20 years medical device experience, had 2 successful exits. One company was New Wave to Johnson & Johnson, another one was Auris to Johnson & Johnson. And I took my pennies and I decided to make my own medical device. I used all the different shops. I used R&D shops. I used regulatory shops. I used hydrophilic coating shops. I used balloon shops. I used catheter shops, contract manufacturing shops, tool and die mold, sterilization, marketing, and sales. And this series is everything compact of what I learned on how to bring a medical device from napkin sketch to commercialization. So in this series of how to bring a medical device from napkin sketch to commercialization, we're going to talk about my very own pride and joy, the Brecca device. So this is a device that I'm going to go all the way from napkin sketch, what we thought and how we were going to develop the product. I'm going to run through all the R&D and prototyping that we did over a number of years. I'll go through regulatory, I'll go through hydrophilic coating, and then I'll move into manufacturing and different tooling fixtures that we made for our RF welding machines, go into sterilization, go into marketing, and then finally go into the sales of where we're at currently selling the Brecca into 10 plus countries around the world. So to start off with, what we started off with our medical device is we were trying to think of a medical device that was different than everything else in the market. It didn't need to be this wild thing where it could, cure cancer or create gold or, create unicorns out of thin air. What we wanted to do is create a medical device that was slightly better with features and benefits over what was currently on the market. Currently on the market, just to give you a sense, this particular medical device, a typical implant funnel is used in breast augmentation where you have a baker's funnel that is implant goes in from one end and then implant is squeezed into a smaller opening into the patient. It's as simple as that. There's nothing crazy about it. It just provides a highway or a freeway for the implant to go into the patient. For this particular device, we thought of through the R&D process, okay, when do we want to do our patents? We didn't want to do our patents right away. Why? Because we wanted to go through the R&D and thought process as much as possible. If we started R&D and we started doing all these crazy patents right off the bat, I knew that I'd run out of money very, very quickly. So we did not want to file any patents right away. I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of inventors make is they have this grandiose idea that they want to have this one thing that's going to fix this one problem, and they're going to patent that one thing. Well, as you go through the R&D, manufacturing, and all these different processes, you realize different technologies, different ways of doing it, and thus you want to patent those things. And maybe you stray so far from your beginning idea that this idea isn't even feasible anymore in the marketplace, and you have a better idea. And the thing is typically for a development process for a medical device, it takes 5 to 7 years to do that. So we just did not want to do the patents right away. We didn't want to spend the money. We were trying to bootstrap the particular medical device. So how did we do the R&D right away? We thought, and we went in to a couple of R&D groups, and we said, hey, give us some crazy brainstorming ideas, phase 0, and we want different ideas of how you could do this. And we came up with all different far-flung type of things. We thought of like shot put things that you could literally press a button and it could shoot in the implant. We thought of like a piece of paper that you could literally wrap around the implant and put in through the small opening. We were thinking of all these crazy, crazy ideas. But what we actually came back to was we were thinking in the R&D phase that we wanted to look at a device that surgeons currently would putting their hands inside of that baker's funnel. They were putting their hands inside it, and the implant was touching their hands and going inside the implant funnel. So we thought, well, I mean, why not put handles on it? Everything else has handles on it. Why don't we put handles on it? Okay, great. It doesn't exist in the marketplace. Let's put handles on it. And then we started getting into the standpoint that we couldn't create that exact funnel anymore. Why? Because it was already patented. There's already companies out there creating that exact same thing. So we thought, okay, how could we have a medical device that just provides so much more benefit than just having a single funnel? And we thought to ourselves, well, shoot, what if doctors had two in their hands? You know, they could use one for one side, they could use another for another side, they could do it for all different types of things. So, okay, what does that look like if you have two, right? Well, we were then thinking that we, in the process, we would start with perhaps a device that went and potentially looked like, I don't know, a rhombus, if you will. And the rhombus then you could have, you know, cut it in half and you could have one on one side and one for the other, and then you could have your handle, right? And so we thought that that would be a great, great thing. Okay, now how do you move the implant smoothly through the patient? We thought of originally putting in some type of hydrogel or hyaluronic acid or HA or anything in there. We explored putting in betadine. We explored putting in all the different types of stuff and having it secured in here, and perhaps the doctor would cut on the dotted lines, and then they could then just put it in there and they could just squirt on out the implant. Well, in going through that, we realized that the regulatory of going through that was so crazy, right, that it wasn't possible. So what I'm getting to this is that creating a medical device is very, very important to have all your shops in one house as much as you possibly can. Why? Because this R&D firm that was creating this was different than the regulatory firm, which was then different than the hydrophilic coating firm, which was then different than the manufacturing firm, which was then different than the sterilization firm. And so you could see that in going through all this, you need all these shops to agree on every little aspect of this particular device. So what I'm saying for phase 0, what we focused a lot on is the concepts. For medical devices, you want to focus on the concept for phase 0. That's it. What are you trying to achieve? How can you achieve it? And does the design support the concept? For this particular concept, we wanted the handles, we wanted the two devices in one. So there's multiple different ways to accomplish that, and the brainstorming aspect of phase 0, trying to go through different solutions that were bottled up in this, trying to go through different types of designs, all that kind of stuff. We were just trying to pick and choose a couple of things that we really, really wanted for phase 0. Again, we weren't applying any patents, we weren't trying to do any patents for phase 0, but we were just trying to do as many brainstorming as you possibly could for phase 0. So what else do you want to do in phase 0? In phase 0, typically what I would make sure is that you have your regulatory team within your product giving you considerations of what's going to happen if you go down this pathway or this pathway or this pathway. You're also going to want to make sure from a manufacturing standpoint, this is where I screwed up. From a manufacturing standpoint, you want to make sure your manufacturer or any of the manufacturers that you're choosing are within and know what they can create. You, like I said in the beginning of the video, you can create these crazy ideas, but are they manufacturable? No. So you want to have a device that is manufacturable. You can create the craziest ideas in the world, it has to be manufacturable. One of the other things to have in consideration is sterilization. When you get down the pathway, typically there's 4 different types of sterilizations. You can do autoclave, which is heat. You can do gamma or E-beam radiation, or you can do ETO sterilization, which is gaseous sterilization. There's other sterilization methods out there like hydrochloric, and there's a couple others, but that's the ETO sterilization, tried and true, used for 50 plus years. It is what it is. We decided in the very, very beginning, we don't know what we wanted to choose, right? So within our phase 0, when we were choosing all these different types of materials and we were choosing different types of coatings, methods, all this type of stuff. We were trying to decide, okay, what manufacturer can make it, what hydrophilic coating companies could be out there, and which one of these products works with sterilization. So we would also send these units to engineering runs on the weekends to have them run, and then we get them back to see what they look like. I can tell you what they looked like because we did it. So in phase 0, what ended up happening, we sent our PVC product out to Gamma. What happened? In E-beam. Came back, it turned yellow. We sent it out to autoclave, okay? What came back? A pile of plastic. It melted 100%. When it sent out to ETO, what happened? It came back, it was sterilized. So we picked ETO sterilization. Kind of a fun experiment. Was it really necessary? We already kind of knew what was going to happen, but we were hoping that perhaps radiation didn't treat it as worse as we thought it was going to be. Phase 0, what else do you want to consider in phase 0? Phase 0, you pretty much want to get down to the point of down selecting something and getting to 2 ideas-ish, okay? We chose 2 ideas, and then we went into phase 1. What do you want to do in phase 1? What is the primary accomplishments in phase 1? Phase 1, the primary accomplishments is prototype, 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 and prototype more. Why do I say that prototype, 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 prototype? Is because you want to understand how hard it's going to be to make this thing. You want to understand how hard it is for the doctor to use the thing or the nurses to use the thing. So you want to make sure that you're creating as many iterations of that product as you possibly can so that everyone can give their opinions, number one. Some are good, some are bad. And then you also want to make sure that you're learning along the way of making that prototype. As you're making it, you might realize that doing something else might be easier. You might realize that applying this other thing might be easier. You might realize that your design is not what you want it to be, and you might want to do different. And you might have a surgeon that says, hey, I don't want it done this way, I want it this way, and this is how it should be done. So phase 1 is primarily prototyping as much as you possibly can to understand the product and understand it with people in the space. What are other considerations that you want to do in phase 1? Other considerations, let's go back to it, okay? We want to understand the manufacturing process of how hard it is to make it. We want to understand the hydrophilic coating or any other type of aspects it is to put the thing together. We want to understand the sterilization, because what if you make so many tiny holes in there that are so enclosed off? How is the thing going to be sterilized? And then you want to understand the regulatory aspects of it. The regulatory aspects, sometimes what ends up happening is that you'll go down this path that is so cool and you love it so much, and you're saying that it's going to be antimicrobial and it's going to be able to whisk away all these biologics, and it's going to provide zero bioburden, and it's going to provide this really nice, clean environment for the implant. Well, if you're going to go through the regulatory process to prove that, oh my bejesus, it's going to take you forever to prove that's what it does. So we had these crazy ideas in phase 1 to do an antimicrobial, highway, implant device that then, as the implant went through, it would provide a cleaner environment for the implant going through. Great idea. Is it feasible? No, it's not feasible at all. It was going to cost us a ton of money. It would take forever to come to market, and it just was not something that we wanted to, the path that we wanted to go down. Also, in going down that pathway, what I learned, there's like 5 different ways to provide antimicrobial solutions, and doctors had various opinions of which one of those 5 different pathways was the best way. So imagine if you went down one of those 5 pathways and you went out to the majority of the market, and 20% of the market believed in every single one of the pathways, and then you're only going to get 20% of the market or 40% of the market at best, because everyone's going to fight you on the pathway that makes the most sense for antimicrobial. So we axed it. We didn't go down that pathway. Okay, phase 1, you're done. You're awesome. You've prototyped the bejesus out of it. Now what happens? Phase 2. So in phase 2, typically what happens is you're going to do a ton of user testing. This can take years of work, years and years of work. Why? because you want to have some rural doctors, you want to have some university doctors, you want to have large volume doctors, you want to have every walk of life of surgeon doctors using this, because you want to understand, is the product going to operate the way that we want it to within the different clinical environments around the US, even the world. I mean, sometimes you want this opinions from someone using in sub-Saharan Africa. I don't know, but you want the different opinions, okay? So user testing in phase 2 is super, super important. That's where you narrow it down to 1 or 2 ideas. You're using it with a ton of different plethora of doctors, and you're getting that feedback in, you're documenting that feedback, and you're making sure that all your concepts and your design of how it's done is the way that you want it to be. Sometimes what ends up happening, at least it happened for us, is we had surgeons that were saying, hey, the handles, I want them slightly this way, or I want them slightly that way, or I want them bigger because I don't like how small the handle is. I want it bigger. Sometimes they're saying it's too sticky because their gloves don't catch all the way underneath, and I want it this, and there's all, it even got down to where we were putting in logos and we're putting in all this drawings on the particular product, and they didn't like the way that the drawings were. It tended to go to exactly what they're using it for. They wanted it. They wanted to know exactly where they were going to cut it, and they wanted to know that they could just put it in, plop it in, and squeeze it into the patient. And that's as simple as it is. They didn't want anything else. So all these extra icons on there, all these extra stuff on there, they didn't care, and they didn't want it. It wasn't helpful to them. It was noise. So I'll give you one additional example. We had created this, we probably spent 3 months on this extra backer card that could go into the device, and it could tell you at what point in time you were going to cut the distal tip of the device to fit the implant that you're going to put in. Well, as we were going through this, the doctors had various opinions on that little cut guide, and it was just a little, paper backer card, but they had all these various opinions, and we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on creating this paper backer card throughout the whole entire process. And then we eventually were talking to this one doctor, this rural doc, and he was saying to us, hey, I don't care about any of that. The only thing I care about is it bigger than this size or is it smaller than this size? That's it. That's all he cared about. And then we threw away that paper backer card and we went into one cut line on the device, and if it is greater than that, you cut. If it is lower than that, you don't. It's as simple as that. And we brought it and went round robin to all the surgeons again, and all of a sudden they're all like, yeah, this is super easy. Super easy. So it's like one of those things you provide, it's like kids, right? Kids, and I'm not downplaying what surgeons do. All I'm saying is that it's very much a psychology thing, right? If you give anyone, yourself included, if you give yourself 30-some options on the menu, right, it's going to be 30-some options, and you're going to have to pick and choose, and you're going to have to go all through all these things, right? If you give someone 4 options on the menu that is really, really good, you only have 4 options to choose from. And you know what? It might be good enough for that particular thing. It's just like airplanes. Airplanes, when you go on the airplane, they don't give you 20-some options on the menu. They give you 2, right? You either usually get lasagna or you get like a chicken. I think that's, those are the 2 things. So it's the same thing for the surgeons when we were creating the devices that we had. Okay, if it's bigger, you cut it. If it's not, it's not. Okay. So now we go into phase 3. Phase 3 is usually designed for manufacturing, DFM. DFM phase does a lot of the tooling, a lot of the die mold, a lot of the actual assembly steps, making sure that all the manufacturing steps are ready and able and to be translated to what they, should actually be. So that being said, for phase 3, what are the big things that we needed to do for our particular device? We needed to create tooling. So tooling, we had to create tooling when we were making our product. We had to go through exactly what parts of the product were going to be RF welded to the particular device. So what do I mean by that? So as you can see in here, we came down to a major breakthrough. And I want to show you this specifically because this is where it gets super frustrating from a medical device manufacturing standpoint. Look at this. This is a trapezoid, right? This is a trapezoid. As I drew up here, this was what, I think it's called a rhombus. I don't know, but I think it's called a rhombus. But if you look at that, what ends up happening with the rhombus? The problem that you end up having is that if you're trying to RF weld the seams on that, it's impossible to RF weld the seams. And the reason is because how do you stick the product through the RF tooling, right? And how do you stick it through there and then clamp it down and weld the seams? It's almost impossible to do it. So with us, when we were going through this, I brought the rhombus to manufacturers all around the world and here in the cities. No one could do it. So after 2+ years of R&D, prototyping, talking to regulatory, going down certain pathways, we went to a manufacturer and it was not manufacturable. It was the most annoying thing in the world. It was not manufacturable. No one could make it the way that we had designed it. So big learning for myself, I realized that the manufacturer needs to be involved very, very early on to tell you yes, no, or maybe so, can you actually make this? So we had to change up the design. So what did we have to do? We had to go all the way back to phase 0, phase 1, to create a new design for the product and go all the way to manufacturing again. So we came up with this particular design that, as you can imagine, you're gonna RF weld the bottom here. You're gonna RF weld the bottom because this is gonna be cut in angel wings, and this flap is gonna be folded over here. This flap is gonna be folded over here, and then we will RF weld the bottom together. Then we'll RF weld the middle together, and then we'll finally RF weld this top with just trimming it off, okay? The nice thing about that is it creates a nice rounded edge right here, and it creates a nice rounded edge right here for the clients. It's nice and smooth. The other thing that we realized in going through the DFM phase and going through the design for manufacturing phases and all the files, we realized that the handles could not be a single RF weld going across. Originally, I thought that you could have it as just a flap, if you will, and the flap you could just kind of half grab onto and kind of pull it apart, right? It's like like a pull string, right? You're kind of pulling it apart, and that's really nice. What ended up happening is that as doctors were pulling on that, they're ripping it apart. And by ripping it apart, it wasn't providing what we wanted to provide. The other thing that we did too is as we were putting in the handles in here and RF welding the handles, we realized that the seam that we had in here originally was too thin. The seam had to be bigger. So then we had to redo the tooling to do greater tooling to actually make the correct size so you couldn't rip it off the product. So in the DFM phases, we had to create all these different sets of tooling, and we really didn't understand what we were creating. We kind of understood what we were creating. Really didn't understand what we were creating though. As we made the tooling the first time around and started making the product, we started realizing things as we were making it. And then we had to order more tooling to actually get to the desired outcome that we were going for. The other thing that we realized, and we never considered, is we didn't realize until very far along that the hydrophilic coating within here was actually touching each other, and it was causing the whole product to stick together while it was in transit. So we had to put in a Tyvek sheet in here to make sure that the product did not stick together. The other thing is we had to work with hydrophilic coating companies here in Minnesota, and those hydrophilic coating companies had to create a product for us. What I realized with hydrophilic coating companies is they want royalties, they want different type of mechanisms of how they can get you long term, and you had to pay $3,000-ish per bottle of the hydrophilic coating. The other thing I realized too is that I was getting nickel and dime for all these hydrophilic coatings. What I mean by that is I would order hydrophilic coating, you mixed up the A, you mixed up the B, and you had your primer. Then you got the next coating. You mixed up your A, you mixed up your B, and then you had your coating. So you had your primer, you had your coating, you had 4 different liquids that you're going through. Well, it only had a working element for like hours at a time. So as you mixed up your A, and let's say the machine shut down and wasn't working, you just wasted $3,000 of product for mixing up the primer. The same thing would happen with the coating. You'd lose $3,000 of product for mixing it up, thinking that you're gonna apply it, and then you could not apply it. So what I realized in working with the hydrophilic coating companies is that you need to choose a product that actually is a primer and coating in one. It's UV curable, not heat or anything like that. Also, you need to make sure that it lasts for like 2+ years, because who wants it going bad within the first couple of hours of mixing it up? Why can't it be shelf life stable for 2 years and you can just open and close it as much as you want? And then why can't it be, $700, $800 per liter? That's how it should be. Why should it be $3,000? So we hired a chemist and we created our own hydrophilic coating. The cool thing about our hydrophilic coating, it's a primer and coating all in one. It's UV curable, so it can cure within 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds under a certain nanometer of UV light. It has 2-year plus shelf life, and so the coating can sit there. It can be opened and closed as many times as you want, and it can be sprayed, it can be rolled, it can be dipped, it can be a number of different ways, all the different ways of doing it. What I realized also is that all these hydrophilic coating companies want to create a machine for you. If they can suck you into creating a $500,000, $700,000 machine to run your stuff, that's what they're going to do. Those machines, as much as they say that they're experts, they say that they're an expert for my thing, they are not experts. They literally dinked around for years at a time and wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars of my money, and they didn't get anything accomplished at all. I got 0 out of it. And at the end, they had nothing to show for. So we created our own hydrophilic coating and our own method of doing it. And we are happy to show you on how to do it yourself so that you don't need to deal with those guys. And it is very, very easy. Our hydrophilic coating, you can go to vitacoat.org and we will show you exactly how to make it. You can buy it for $800 per liter, and it is very, very, very simple to apply. Okay, so that is phase 3, that is for DFM, and that is what we did for our Breca device. Moving on to phase 4 for our medical device is regulatory testing. So a couple of learnings that I learned for our regulatory testing. You need to do biocomp, you need to do shipping testing, advanced aging, sterilization validation. You need to do all these testing and V&V testing, all the performance testing. So those are the testings that we had to do for our particular medical device. The V&V testing, we tested a lot of different implants. We tested a lot of different sizes of implants on our particular product to go through the V&V testing methods. We had it to a certain extent where you could put the implant through it a certain amount of times to make sure that it could go once, right, through it successfully. We also made sure that the coating was a certain thickness on there so that it would stand up to all those times. And then also for biocom testing, we tested our standard way of going about it. All I would say that my learnings for phase 4 is that I worked with so many different regulatory people for phase 4. And the most frustrating thing that I had going through it was I thought that my person could do the whole gambit, right? They could do all the biocom testing, they could do the sterilization validation, they could do all of it. Reg people know what to do. They don't know specifically what to do for those particular things. I'll give you an example, because all you reg people are probably listening to this. They're like, hey, no, I can do it all. No. This is what I'm saying. my regulatory person was giving me all this feedback on what to do for the biocomp and what to do for advanced aging, for shipping testing. They were going through all that methods. And then I got to sterilization validation. And my reg person was like, hey, I'm not an expert in this. You got to use someone else. And I was like, well, shoot, why? I got this far in where I'm going. Why do I have to use someone else? And like, this isn't my world. You need to use someone else. So we went to go use someone else. This person wasn't available. We were calling them. We were emailing them. And then you deal with the sterilization houses that they don't respond to your emails. They don't respond to your texts. They don't respond to anything. And so you get into this black hole. And my regulatory person that I originally hired couldn't help me. The regulatory person that I hired for sterilization validation couldn't help me. And the actual place that was doing the sterilization validation could not help me. So you get into this massive black hole of frustration, and you're paying all these guys money in it, and you just get so frustrated that there's nothing to do. So what we ended up doing, this is where I get to my frustration point, all these things I'm explaining here, we actually brought in-house, and we are actually doing in-house ourselves. So we brought in ETO sterilization, and we did sterilization validation ourselves on our own product. And we realized that instead of waiting a year with these other companies and dealing with these other yahoos, we could do the ETO sterilization internally. I want to give you one funny thing really quick, because this will blow your mind, but maybe for some of you that have created medical devices before and you're seeing this for the first time, maybe it doesn't blow your mind at all. I got to a point that I was so frustrated with the sterilization house and the regulatory person that was writing the protocol for the sterilization validation. I got to the point that one of the reps had called me back and was like, hey, sorry no one's getting back to you. Just go to the sterilization shop. So I literally took my car, my little car, I drove to the sterilization shop. I knocked on the door, and because it's locked and everything, I knock on the door. They're like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, are you trying to drop off a delivery? I'm like, no, I'm trying to pick up my product that you guys have had for like 6 months. And they're like, no one ever comes here to pick up the product. You usually get a delivery. I'm like, no, I'm not leaving until I get my product. So they literally sent me back to the back warehouse. We found it in one of the pallets up in the warehouse rafters, okay? They get someone to get a crane. I'm literally sitting there. They bring it down. And they're like, okay, well, you got to sign off on making, okay, yes, I'll sign it off. And finally, at the end, I wish I would have taken a picture of this. There was trucks and trucks loading all these medical devices onto their trucks. You have my car that was pulled up to the loading dock. And I was literally taking my product off of the pallets and putting it into my car. And at the end, the guy was like, oh, well, we don't do anything with these pallets. You're going to have to take it with you. And I was like, I can't fit it in my car. My car's full of product. What am I going to do? I can't tape it to my roof. I can't. And I was like, well, can you just take it down for me? And he's like, well, no. So there's this whole hoopla at the end that I had to find some warehouse dude that was going to repurpose the pallet at the sterilization house so I could then move on, and they weren't going to charge me an arm and a leg for the stupid pallet. It was a complete cluster show. So I get my medical device. I'm so pumped, and so that is phase 4, guys. Phase 4 is the majority of regulatory testing, making sure that if you want to bundle it all up in a nice little bundle for phase 4, make sure that you are communicating with your quality team, your regulatory team, your manufacturing team, and any design elements that need to happen last minute for any part of production and getting the products for performance testing. One last comment that I'm going to make on the phase 4. Typically for us, what we do 1,000 DV units for phase 4. The reason why that we're doing that more and more is because if tests fail or anything fails as you're going through the process, everyone tries to cut it for as low as they possibly can for DV units because it's so expensive, right? You're buying product. We just have learned enough now. We need to do straight 1,000 units every single time. Again, if things break, if things whatever, you can always repurpose those units for demo units for your sales team, right? Okay, so that's phase 4. Last but not least, phase 5. So our product was FDA registered, it was FDA cleared, all the tests passed, and we're good to go to bring our medical device to market. We register, everything's great, right? I go to do my first case. My first case, I realized I started cutting it up and go to use the product. Guys, it didn't work. It didn't work. We had bought 2,000 units of product at $200 per unit, and it didn't work. And it didn't work. And out of everything that we learned, it didn't work. Why? Why didn't it work? The problem that it didn't work is because the inside of the product, the inside of the coating of the product did not activate. It just didn't work. So we thought that we had tested it a number of times. We thought we had done it a number of times. We thought we had cured it a number of times. We thought we had done everything. It did not work. The other thing that was impossible to sell the units is all the printing that we had on the device was peeling off. It was all peeling off. I mean, you could literally pull the peel off of the device. So I had $400,000 of product. That stuff was peeling off of it, and I couldn't bring it into the OR. You can't do that. That's not okay at all. So we had to scrap all that product. What's really funny about that, if you guys ever come and visit us in Minnesota, we have the pallets of devices. I'll show you myself the devices. It looks like crap compared to what we did. It's bad. We still have all the devices. So what did we have to do at that point in time? We had to go back and we had to buy our own equipment to do the printing on it. We had to go back and do biocomp again. We had to go back, do sterilization validation again. We had to go back, do the whole, design of how it's going to look, all that type of stuff over and over again. So when I'm talking to you about bringing a medical device from napkin sketch to commercialization, I've done it like 3 times over with one device, and it was super painful. So I know a thing or two of what not to do. What did we actually do then? We actually bought our equipment to bring it in-house, to control every single step. We actually hired a chemist to make our own hydrophilic coating. We actually bought our own RF welding machines to do our own RF welding. We bought our own ETO sterilization equipment to do our own ETO sterilization. And we have regulatory quality engineers, we have manufacturing, we have everything under one roof now, so that when you bring your own medical device to market now, you can learn from all of our mistakes, and you can have it all come through the first time, the right time, every single time, instead of what we went through is 7 years of bringing a medical device to market. And it was painful. But let's go into this now. BRCAmedical.org. You can buy BRCA now in the US. It is a fantastic product. It took us forever. It's a fantastic product. We went from version 1 when we launched to today in February of 2026. We are at version 10. So there's been 10 iterations within about a 2-year period of the device coming on the market. It is currently sold in 10 countries around the world. And the product has awesome patents, handles 2-in-1 and some other things that go all the way for the next 15, 17 years or whatever it is. So yeah, we're pretty proud of this device. It took us a lot of pain and suffering to get here, and it's a great medical device. If you have any questions about how we brought this to market, please comment below. I will make sure to answer as many as I possibly can. If you want to set up time with me, I'll put my Calendly within the section so that you can reach out to me and have any questions. Or if you want to help me with my post-traumatic stress syndrome and want to be my therapist for a little bit, I'm happy to talk to you about all the failings that I've gone through. But now, just a shameless plug on our own company. Our own company now has everything in-house. Voltas is a medical device development and manufacturing company where we have 80 plus employees, and we have everything in-house so that you can get one quote, one project manager, one timeline, one budget, and you don't need to worry about working with all the other shops and go through the same problem that I had of trying to do it over and over again and failing over and over. So come and check us out at www.voltas.io. Check out my Calendly, and I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck out there.